There we go. There we go. Okay. I knew I was muted. I had. There we go. There we go. Today, we're all comfy cozy. Got a nice comfy cozy blanket. Howdy, partner. Howdy. Good evening, chat. Good evening. Well, I don't wanna just jump right into it. I wanna do some chatting first. Let people have time to join in. Because I'm not sure if you already stopped streaming or not, and I think some people will come over from there to here. Don't spill the tea on the blanket. I will not. But, just woke up. Oh, good morning. It's your birthday. Happy birthday, vegetable lasagna. What is a vegetable lasagna? Did you watch the 86th anime? No, I did not. I would be going into the series completely blind. What was your extra 12 hours of sleep? It was pretty good. Good morning, Nicola. She's spilling. I'm not gonna spill it. Not Pippa from YouTube. It's the Pipkin, Pippa. Oh my god. Good morning. Wait, good morning. You're supposed to be going to sleep. Please? Cumpleaños? Please? Cumpleaños? 12 hours of sleep is amazing in moderation. I think. Thank you. Tama made me this plush. Thank you. It's a very cute plush. I think on Monday I slept all but like 4 hours of the day. Pippa's a rabbit, but sometimes I feel more like a ferret. Cause ferrets, they have a lot of energy. They run around a lot and they're super hyper, but that's only for a few hours. Is that a blanket or a rope? This is a blanket. Bunny. You and Tama have a love-hate relationship, yes. Pippa the sloth. Pippa's too big-brained to be a sloth. It's not a Snuggie. I wish I had a Snuggie. Ferrets are cute. I really love ferrets. Face Connect blanket merch win. Oh, I don't know. That's up to management. So right now I don't have like set BGM or anything. I kinda wanna convert everything to country music just to torture you guys. I just wanna make you guys suffer. But I feel like this is a pretty good playlist right now. This is a pretty good playlist, I think. We just leave this playing? Country music ranking stream win. Oh, that's hard. I don't know how to. Motorbike breaking. Tag says Cake Catboy. Yeah, that's the artist that made this. Pippa just sold on some letters. Country music is wild though. If you go far back enough into country music. Pippa had a playlist going one time. Oh, there are birds outside. Pippa had an old country music playlist going. And one of the songs that came on. It caught Pippa very off guard. Older country music is they say some bad words. Teacup is for how? Coffee in the back. Huh? Oh, teacup is for show. Oh, now Pippa has tea. Pippa has Earl Grey tea. I'm neutral on country music. I'll listen to it if it's playing, but I don't go out of my way to listen. Rock is my go-to. Oh, see, Pippa likes pretty much all music. Like, I'm not particularly picky, you know? When I was younger, I used to be very staunch. I was only into like rock and roll. I was only into let's see, what were my favorite bands at the time? I think Pippa's favorite music at the time. It was like Skillet and Breaking Benjamin, Third Eye Blind, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, stuff like that. But then as Pippa got older, she learned to not hate the music that she grew up with. Because in Pippa's homeland, no matter where you went, there was always country music on the radio. Like if you walked into a store. I'm sorry, I thought you said rock and roll. I know I listed some more like alternative rock there, but like I was also into some more like classics and stuff, like Billy Joel was my favorite for a while. I had a brief Elvis binge. There was this radio station that only played Elvis music. And I would just leave that on. You know Rick Astley? Yes, I do. And then there was oh, Pippa had a Sinatra binge as well. Frank Sinatra. But yeah, in Pippa's homeland, no matter where you went, it was always country music. You would walk into a big grocery store, and it would just be country music. So it caught Pippa off guard when she moved to some more populated areas, because Pippa moved around a bit. And going into a store and hearing pop music, I was like, oh, this is different. I don't like it, but this is different. Pippa used to really hate pop music. I don't care as much anymore. What's it like to move around a lot? It's really nice. It's really nice. Pippa misses that. Lately, since coming to the coming to Earth. Yeah, Pippa likes bluegrass. Since coming to Earth, Pippa has been a lot more stationary. But that's because here on Earth, you can't really just you can't really just set up somewhere, you know? You can't really just set up somewhere. It was much easier to just move around in Pippa's homeland. But here there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of like codes and stuff about how good your house has to be and stuff. It's such a you're just a vibrate on chair like restless leg syndrome. Don't forget packing. Oh, Pippa's always hated packing. Packing is the worst. Because then, okay, here's the problem with packing, right? Here's the problem with packing. You spend all that time organizing stuff, making sure every box is labeled. And then no matter what you do, it seems like one of the boxes goes missing. No matter what you do, there's always that one box that goes missing, and that box had like your it would have had like your spatula in it or something that you used, or whatever you need in that moment. You'll never be able to find another one, and you'll be like, well, I can't justify going out and buying another one of these because eventually it's gonna turn up. And then it doesn't. So you buy a new one. And then a few months later or whatever, you're packing up to move to the new place. you're just sitting here like, well, now I have 2 of these. What should I do with the other one? And you end up with doubles of a lot of random stuff. And you can never justify getting rid of it because you're like, well, what if I lose this one? And anyways, that's how you end up with like 9 spatulas. Brush my teeth, got in the pajamas, I'm ready for bedtime, or for Pippa time. Ah! Okay, yeah, let's start reading. I'm gonna turn that off. And then I have a reading song. Hello, Hoarder. Pippa has an entire storage room full of spatulas. No, I do not. Okay, let's we have our story. Are you guys ready? Oh, and just a reminder, any donations will be read at the end. Morning, but I'm still in bed. Get closer. Ready, Freddy. What? I used to know a lot of these. I'd be like, what's the word, hummingbird? And oh god, there were so many. I would always end my sentences, or like when I say goodbye, I would always be like, see you later, alligator. And if somebody didn't say, oh, in a while, crocodile, I would heckle them. I'd be like, are you gonna say it? And they'd be like, do I have to? And I'd be like, yeah, you have to say it. And then I'd say it again. I'd be like, see you later, alligator. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And then they'd be, very begrudgingly, they'd be like, in a while, crocodile. The ritual must be complete. Hit the trail, tiny snail. Okay, so let's get to reading. Let's get to reading, chat. Like, let's put it there. Okay. Oh, you wanted a recap. So, what has happened so far is Alice is in Wonderland and she just met the caterpillar. Twitter's not loading for me either. I thought I broke it. Yeah, Alice just met the canary, or not the canary. Alice just met the pigeon, and the pigeon was very upset. And then she met the caterpillar, and the caterpillar mocked her. He was very condescending. She met the puppy. She played fetch with a giant puppy. Well, actually, I think the puppy was normal size. She was just small. And she met Bill the lizard, and she was inside Mr. White Rabbit's house, and she grew very big, and she scared them very much. I'll take a sip of tea. Wow. Oh, I left the tea bag too long. Ah, it's so bitter now. Oh well. I left the tea bag in for way too long. Oh no. Oh well. Alright. Chapter 6. Pig and Pepper. What tea are you drinking? Oh, great. Oh, and if you want to read along, the PDF is pinned. It's pinned in the chat box. Let's get started! For a moment... Sorry. For a minute or two, she stood looking at the house and wondering what to do next, when suddenly a footman in a livery came running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in livery. Otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish. Yo, Chad, it's Sakana! Yo, Chad, it's Sakana! Oh my god! It's the founder of Face Connect. Oh my god! Something is in this book. Sucking these nuts. I turn the BGM down a little bit. There we go. Anyways. And rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery, with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled all over their heads. She felt very curious to know what it was all about, and crept a little way out of the wood to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter, nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, for the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet. Sound alright? Yes, sucking these nuts. Ah! The frog footman repeated, in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of the words a little, from the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet. Then they both bowed low, and their curls got entangled together. Alice laughed so much at this that she had to run back into the wood for fear of their hearing her, and when she next peeped out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly into the sky. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There is no sort of use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for two reasons. First, because I'm on the same side of the door as you are. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside no one could possibly hear you." And certainly there was a most extraordinary noise going on within, a constant howling and sneezing, and every now and then a great crash, as if a dish or a kettle had been broken to pieces. "Please, then," said Alice, "how am I to get in?" "There might be some sense in your knocking," the footman went on without attending to her, "if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock, and I could let you out, you know." He was looking up into the sky all the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head. But at any rate, he might answer questions. How am I to get in?" she repeated out loud. Aloud. "I shall sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out, straight at the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke to pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly as if nothing had happened. "How am I to get in?" asked Alice again in a louder tone. Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." Not a Why did you censor British? "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." It was, no doubt, only Alice did not like to be told so. "It's really dreadful," she muttered to herself, "the way all the creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy." The footman seemed to think this a good opportunity for repeating his remark, with variations. "I shall sit here," he said, "on and off, for days and days." "But what am I to do?" said Alice. "Anything you like," said the footman, and began whistling. "Oh, there's no use in talking to him," said Alice desperately. "He's perfectly idiotic." And she opened the door and went in. The door led right into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron which seemed to be full of soup. "There's certainly too much pepper in that soup," Alice said to herself as well as she could for sneezing. Sorry. There was certainly too much of it in the air. Even the Duchess sneezed occasionally, And as for the baby, it was sneezing and howling alternately without a moment's pause. The only two creatures in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and a large cat which was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. "Please, would you tell me," said Alice, a little timidly, for she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, "why your cat grins like that?" "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess, "and that's why. Pig." She said the last word with such sudden violence that Alice quite jumped, but she saw in another moment that it was addressed to the baby and not to her, so she took courage and went on again. "I didn't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I didn't know that cats could grin." "They all can," said the Duchess, "and most of them do." "I don't know of any that do," Alice said very politely, feeling quite pleased to have got into a conversation. "You don't know much," said the Duchess, "and that's a fact." Alice did not at all like the tone of this remark, and thought it would be as well to introduce some other subject of conversation. While she was trying to fix on one, the cook took the cauldron off the fire and at once set to work throwing everything within her reach at the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them, even when they hit her, and the baby was howling so much already that it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt it or not. "Oh, please mind what you're doing!" cried Alice, jumping up and down in an agony of terror. "Oh, there goes his precious nose!" as an unusually large saucepan flew close by it and very nearly carried it off. Gisip. "If everybody minded their own business," said the Duchess in a hoarse growl, "the world would go round a deal faster than it does." "Which would not be an advantage," said Alice, who felt very glad to get an opportunity of showing off a little of her knowledge. "Just think of what work it would make with the day and night. You see, the Earth takes 24 hours to turn around on its axis." "Talking of axes," said the Duchess, "chop off her head." Alice glanced rather anxiously at the cook to see if she meant to take the hint, but the cook was busily stirring the soup and seemed not to be listening, so she went on again. 24 hours, I think. Or is it 12? Oh, don't bother me," said the Duchess. I never could abide figures." And with that she began nursing her child again, singing a sort of lullaby to it as she did so, and giving it a violent shake at the end of every line. "Speak roughly to your little boy, and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases." A chorus in which the cook and the baby joined. Wow, wow, wow. While the Duchess sang the second verse of the song, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor little thing howled so that Alice could hardly hear the words. "I speak severely to my boy, I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases. Wow, wow, wow." "Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like," said the Duchess to Alice, flinging the baby at her as she spoke. "I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen." And she hurried out of the room. The cook threw a frying pan after her as she went, but it just missed her. Alice caught the baby with some difficulty, and it was a queer-shaped little creature, and held out its arms and legs in all directions. "Just like a starfish," thought Alice. The poor little thing was snorting like a steam engine when she caught it, and kept doubling itself up and straightening itself out again, so that altogether, for the first minute or two, it was as much as she could do to hold it. Got some child abuse going. Got a little bit of child abuse going, oh my. As soon as she had made out the proper way of nursing it, which was to twist it up into a sort of knot, and then keep tight hold of its right ear and left foot so as to prevent its undoing itself, she carried it out into the open air. "If I don't take this child away with me," thought Alice, "they're sure to kill it in a day or two. Wouldn't it be murder to leave it behind?" She said the last words out loud, and the little thing grunted in reply. It had left off sneezing by this time. "Don't grunt," said Alice. That's not at all a proper way of expressing yourself. The baby gruntled again, and Alice looked very anxiously into its face to see what was the matter with it. There could be no doubt that it had very well... I don't know why I can't read today. There could be no doubt that it had a very turn-up nose, much more like a snout than a real nose. Also, its eyes were getting extremely small for a baby. Altogether, Alice did not like the look of the thing at all. But perhaps it was only sobbing, she thought, and looked into its eyes again to see if there were any tears. No, there were no tears. "If you're going to turn into a pig, my dear," said Alice, seriously, "I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now." The poor little thing sobbed again, or grunted, it was impossible to say which, and they went on for some while in silence. Alice was just beginning to think to herself, "Now, what am I to do with this creature when I get it home?" when it grunted again, so violently that she looked down into its face in some alarm. This time there could be no mistake about it. It was neither more nor less than a pig, and she felt that it would be quite absurd for her to carry it any further. So she set the little creature down, and felt quite relieved to see it trot away quietly into the wood. If it had grown up, she said to herself, it would have made a dreadfully ugly child. But it makes a rather handsome pig, I think. And she began thinking over other children who might do very well as pigs, and was just saying to herself, if one only knew the right way to change them, when she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards off. Alice is a savage! Alice is a savage, chat. Another sip of tea. Jesus Christ. The cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought. Still, it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt it ought to be treated with respect. "Cheshire Puss," she began, rather timidly, as she did not at all know whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. It's pleased so far," thought Alice, and she went on. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to walk from here?" "That depends a good deal on where you want to go," said the cat. "I don't much care where," said Alice. "Then it doesn't matter which way you walk," said the cat. "So long as I get somewhere," Alice added as an explanation. "Oh, you're sure to do that," said the cat, "if you only walk long enough." Alice felt that this could not be denied, so she tried another question. "What sort of people live about here?" "In that direction," the cat said, waving its right paw around, "lives a hatter. And in that direction," waving the other paw, "lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad." "But I don't want to go among mad people," Alice remarked. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad. You're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" said Alice. "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on. "And how do you know that you are mad?" "To begin with," said the cat, "a dog's not mad. You grant that?" "I suppose so," said Alice. "Well then," the cat went on, "you see, a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now I growl when I'm pleased and wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore, I'm mad." "I call it purring, not growling," said Alice. "Call it what you like," said the cat. "Do you play croquet with the Queen today?" "I should like it very much," said Alice, "but I haven't been invited yet." "You'll see me there," said the cat, and vanished. Alice was not much surprised at this. She was getting so used to queer things happening. While she was looking at the place where it had been, it suddenly appeared again. "By the by, what became of the baby?" said the cat, I'd nearly forgotten to ask. It turned into a pig, Alice answered very quietly, just as if the cat had come back in a natural way. I thought it would, said the cat, and vanished again. Alice waited a little, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear, and after a minute or two she walked on in the direction in which the March Hare was said to live. I've seen hatters before, she said to herself. The March Hare will be much the most interesting, and perhaps as this May it won't be raving mad. At least, not so much as it was in March. As she said this, she looked up, and there was the cat again, sitting on the branch of a tree. Did you say pig or fig? Said the cat. I said pig, replied Alice, and I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so suddenly. You make one quite giddy. All right, said the cat, and this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it had gone. Can you pause the story? I need to go to the bathroom. Well, one second. Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, thought Alice. But a grin without a cat, it's the most curious thing I ever saw in all my life. She had not gone much farther before she came in the sight of the house of the March Hare. She thought it must be the right house, because the chimneys were shaped like ears, and the roof was thatched with fur. It was so large a house that she did not like to go nearer till she had nibbled some more of the left-hand bit of mushroom and raised herself to about 2 feet high. Even then she walked up towards it rather timidly, saying to herself, suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the Hatter instead. Okay, don't go in a bottle, Jesus Christ! Go use the restroom. Potty break, go use the restroom, and not in a bottle. My throat's still quite sore, so I'm sorry, I can't speak very gently. Although, do I sound gentle? I don't know. I'm not good at judging the sound of my own voice. I'm not good at. Mama Ken always said I had a very rugged, deep voice, but I don't think that sounds quite right at all. Sounds British. I think that's just when I'm reading. I'm not. I don't normally speak with that kind of tone. Oh, Bees, thank you for the 420. I don't know. I feel like I'm one of those people that I don't know. My voice sounds very different depending on the situation. I think that's most people, but like most things about me, it's quite exaggerated. Welcome back, Cap. Did you wash your hands? Oh. Your voice is really soft and sweet, except when playing war games. We're slowly adopting the British cult. With our fairy tales, we must stop this cultural exchange. Relatable. My voice sounds mute when I read textbooks because I don't... A narrator. Huh? Vocal range is great to have. Much better than being monotone every... Like Sir David Attenborough. I think this is a result of, like with British accents, everything's very pronounced. And I try to speak very clearly and fluidly when I'm reading. I feel like a British accent just has very good flow with that. Does that make sense? I don't know. Cause when I'm speaking regularly, I slur my words quite a bit, I feel like. And I'm not very clear. But when I'm reading, I put a great deal into sounding the best I can. I had a monotone teacher. He was great for law class, not so good for history. Why do you have coffee in the background, but holding tea? The coffee is for after stream. But yeah, if I do any more reading streams in the future, regardless of whether or not they're British, I'll sound like this. But I don't get cold, but I'll put it in the microwave and then it won't be cold anymore. Moon Lagoon, hello! Oh, let's look at the pictures. So here we have... I always forget. I have a cursor that Tenma made me. I don't know why I don't, Maybe pasta reading stream. Oh my gosh. I don't know why I don't ever use my cursor. I just went to put it on stream and then I failed. Da-da-da! That's one of the things, my boss told me is to work on my like diction and stuff, you know, to pronounce things more clearly. But I always worry about that. Like, I'm not sure how to speak clearly in like an American accent, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if I speak with a more like British intonation, things sound a lot clearer. But then if I speak with a British accent, I feel like a clown. I feel like I feel silly. Yeah, here we see the Cheshire Cat. A full Irish. Up the morning to you, laddie. Look up how news broadcasters speak. That's a good idea. A really good idea. And here we have the Cheshire Cat and Alice. And here he is, like, sitting on top of the tree and he's got his big grin. The other illustration from this chapter, we have Alice holding the little pig. That was originally a baby. This book is so weird. I was thinking of Stephen Fry, that's the Harry Potter narrator. Here before then, we have the Duchess standing here. And we have the Cheshire Cat here in the corner. And the baby right here. We have the cook. I wonder if the Duchess was the inspiration for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Because in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, the Queen of Hearts is, he looks quite like this, I think. He's got a very oversized head. Got a reading permit for this stream? Yo, Ma, there's this weird feckin' cat outside. Looks kinda like Grandma. How's it going? It's going good. Konnichiwa, kawaii desu. Domo arigato. What? I think that's it. Oh, wait, no. Last illustration, we have Sakana. Isn't this book within the public domain? Yes, it is. This book is public domain. Anyone can read it, anyone can profit off of it. So yeah, here we have Sakana. And here we have, I don't know, one of the future managers maybe. One of the future staff members. It's funny though, like I'm really bad at doing accents. Does it bother anyone else that fish are always pogging? What? Yeah, that's why you see story elements directly lifted from it in so much media. You can't get a copyright strike if the content is outside copyright. Or if we're in a country that doesn't have the copyright stuff. I don't know, where do they host the pirate base servers? Okay. Chapter 7. A Mad Tea Party. Possibly like one of the most iconic chapters. Comfortable. Oh, thank you. Cars Karen9. Thank you for the 333. I read donations at the end. Actually, should we read donations like in between? No, let's just do that because we haven't started on the next chapter yet. Let's just read donations in between, then like we can get to them faster. I always feel so weird about accents and stuff. Like when Pippa was a youngkin. When Pippa was a youngkin, he kind of had a bit of an accent. And people... Maybe between chapters and pauses. People would get very, very mean about it. People would be like, why are you speaking with that accent? You're not from there. And I'm just like, I don't know. It just happens. I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know how to turn it off. Like... But that's why I've started to avoid, well, not started. I've always kind of avoided any media that has an accent in it. Like not long ago I was watching The Heart of Dixie. And they speak with like very a lot of the characters have like very they have like a southern drawl, you know? And I started catching myself like picking that accent up. So I had to stop watching. I didn't want to get made fun of. I had a Cajun accent growing up. It still comes out when I visit family. The only accents I could do was Southern, British, Irish, or Scottish. Irish and Scottish and British, they all kind of like bleed together for me. I'm not very good at like understanding that stuff. But anyways, 𝚘𝐚𝐭 tipped 333. It's nice to finally catch you live from the start. Pleasantly surprised at the diversity of your streams. Thank you. Bees tipped 420 and said zzz. Kurarin tipped 420 and said, hell yeah, books and shit. One time as a kid, I started doing a ton of accents right after the other and then forgot how I usually talked. Never picked up the accents, but did pick up quite a few words. Accents scare me. Accents scare me. I don't wanna be made fun of. Okay. Chapter 7. There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head. Very uncomfortable for the dormouse, thought Alice. Only, as it's asleep, I suppose it doesn't mind. The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it. No room, no room, they cried out when they saw Alice coming. There's plenty of room, said Alice indignantly. And she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table. Have some wine, said the March Hare. The March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing on it but tea. I don't see any wine, she remarked. There isn't any, said the March Hare. Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it, said Alice angrily. It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited, said the March Hare. I didn't know it was your table, said Alice. It's laid for a great many more than 3. Your hair wants cutting, said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech. You should learn not to make personal remarks, Alice said with some severity. It's very rude. The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was, Why is a raven like a writing desk? Come, we shall have some fun now, thought Alice. I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that, she added aloud. Does that mean you think you can find out the answer to it? Said the March Hare. Exactly so, said Alice. Then you should say what you mean, the March Hare went on. I do, Alice hastily replied. At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know. Not the same thing a bit, said the Hatter. Why, you must just as well say that I see what I eat. It is the same thing as I eat what I see. You might just as well say that. You might just as well say, added the March Hare, that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like. You might just as well say, added the Dormouse, who seemed to be talking in his sleep, that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe. It is the same thing with you, said the Hatter, and here the conversation dropped. and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which wasn't much. Choo-choo. I don't know if you can hear it. What a mouthful. Yes, a lot. Choo-choo. Chaka-chaka, 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 chaka-chaka. My burrow's next to a train. Sorry. It shakes the burrow quite a bit as it goes by. Also some associative language. The Hatter was the first to break the silence. "What day of the month is it?" he said, turning to Alice. He had taken his watch out of his pocket and was looking at it uneasily, shaking it every now and then and holding it to his ear. Alice considered a little and said, "4th. 2 days wrong," sighed the Hatter. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works," he added, looking angrily at the March Hare. "It was the best butter," the March Hare meekly replied. "Yes, but some crumbs must have gotten in as well," the Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife." The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again, but he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark. "It was the best butter, you know." Alice had been looking over his shoulder with some curiosity. "What a funny watch," she remarked. "It tells the days of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is." "Why should it?" muttered the Hatter. "Does your watch tell you what year it is?" "Of course not," Alice replied very readily. "But that's because it stays the same year for such a long time together." "Which is just the case with mine," said the Hatter. Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remarks seemed to her to have no sort of meaning in it, and yet it was certainly English. "I don't quite understand you," she said, as politely as she could. "The Dormouse is asleep again," said the Hatter, and he poured a little hot tea onto its nose. The Dormouse shook its head impatiently and said, without opening its eyes, of course, just what I was going to remark myself." "Have you guessed the riddle yet?" the Hatter said, turning to Alice again. "No, I give up," Alice replied. "What's the answer?" "I haven't the slightest idea," said the Hatter. "Nor I," said the March Hare. Alice sighed wearily. "I think you might do something better with the time," she said, "than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers." "If you knew time as well as I do," said the Hatter, "you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him." "I don't know what you mean," said Alice. "Of course you don't," the Hatter said, tossing his head contemptuously. "I dare say you never even spoke to time." "Perhaps not," Alice cautiously replied. "But I know I have to beat time when I learn music." "Ah, that accounts for it," said the Hatter. "He won't stand beating. Now if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and around goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner." "I only wish it was," the March Hare said to itself in a whisper. "That would be grand, certainly," said Alice thoughtfully. "But then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know." "Not at first, perhaps," said the Hatter. But you could keep it to... But you could keep it to 1:30 as long as you liked." "Is that the way you manage?" Alice asked. The Hatter shook his head mournfully. "Not I," he replied. "We quarreled last March, just before he went mad, you know," pointing with his teaspoon at the March Hare. It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing, 'Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you're at.' You know the song, perhaps?" "I've heard something like it," said Alice. "It goes on, you know." The Hatter continued in this way. "Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle." Here the Dormouse shook itself and began singing in its sleep. "Twinkle, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle," and went on so long they had to pinch it to make it stop. "Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse," said the Hatter, when the Queen bawled out, "He's murdering the time! Off with his head!" "How dreadfully savage!" exclaimed Alice. And ever since that, The Hatter went on in a mournful tone. "You won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now." A bright idea came into Alice's head. "Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?" she asked. "Yes, that's it," said the Hatter with a sigh. "It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between whiles." "Then you should keep moving around, I suppose?" said Alice. "Exactly so," said the Hatter. "As the things get used up." "Well, when you come to the beginning again," Alice ventured to ask. "Suppose we change the subject," the March Hare interrupted, yawning. "I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tells us a story." "I'm afraid I don't know one," said Alice, rather alarmed at the proposal. Take a sip. "Then the Dormouse shall," they both cried. "Wake up, Dormouse!" And they pitched it on both sides at once. The Dormouse slowly opened his eyes. "I wasn't asleep," he said in a hoarse, feeble voice. "I heard every word you fellows were saying." Oh, thank you. Thank you for the dono. I'll read it at the start of the next chapter. "Tell us a story," said the March Hare. "Yes, please do," pleaded Alice. "And be quick about it," added the Hatter, "or you'll be asleep again before it's done." Once upon a time, there were 3 little sisters. The Dormouse began in a great hurry. And their names were Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well. "What did they live on?" said Alice, who always took a great interest in asking questions of eating and drinking. "They lived on a treacle," said the Dormouse, after thinking a minute or two. "They couldn't have done that, you know," Alice gently remarked. "They'd have been ill." "So they were," said the Dormouse. "Very ill." Alice tried a little to fancy to herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much. So she went on, "But why did they live at the bottom of the well, or at the bottom of a well?" I'm gonna re-say that. "But why did they live at the bottom of a well?" "Take some more tea," the March Hare said to Alice very earnestly. "I've had nothing yet," Alice replied in an offended tone, "so I can't take more." "You mean you can't take less?" said the Hatter. "It's very easy to take more than nothing." "Nobody asked your opinion," said Alice. "Who's making personal remarks now?" the Hatter asked triumphantly. Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself to some tea and bread and butter, and then turned to the Dormouse and repeated her question. Why did they live at the bottom of a well? The Dormouse again took a minute or two to think about it, and then said, "It was a treacle well." "There's no such thing," Alice was beginning very angrily, but the Hatter and the March Hare went shh, shh, and the Dormouse sulkily remarked, "If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself." "No, please go on," Alice said very humbly. "I won't interrupt again. I dare say there may be one." "One indeed," said the Dormouse indignantly. However, he consented to go on. "And so these 3 little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know." "What did they draw?" said Alice, quite forgetting her promise. "Treacle," said the Dormouse, without considering at all this time. "I want a clean cup," interrupted the Hatter. "Let's all move one place on." He moved on as he spoke, and the Dormouse followed him. The March Hare moved into the Dormouse's place, and Alice rather unwillingly took the place of the March Hare. The Hatter was the only one who got any advantage from the change, and Alice was a good deal worse off than before, as the March Hare had just upset the milk jug into his plate. Alice did not wish to offend the Dormouse again, so she began very cautiously. "But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from?" "You can draw water out of a water well," said the Hatter. "So I should think you could draw a treacle out of a treacle well. Eh, stupid?" "But they were in the well," said Alice said to the Dormouse, not choosing to notice this last remark. "Of course they were," said the Dormouse. "Well, in." The answer so confused poor Alice that she let the Dormouse go on for some time without interrupting it. "They were learning to draw," the Dormouse went on, yawning and rubbing its eyes, for it was getting very sleepy, "and they drew all manner of things, everything that begins with an M. Why with an M? Said Alice. Why not? Said the March Hare. Alice was silent. The Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time and was going off into a doze. But on being pinched by the Hatter, it woke up again with a little shriek and went on. It begins with an M, such as mousetraps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. You know, you say things are much of a muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness? Really, now you ask me, said Alice, very much confused. I don't think. Then you shouldn't talk, said the Hatter. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took the least notice of her going, though she looked back once or twice, half hoping that they would call after her. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into the teapot. At any rate, I'll never go there again, said Alice as she picked her way through the wood. It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life. Just as she said this, she noticed that one of the trees had a door leading right into it. That's very curious, she thought. But everything's curious today. I think I may as well go in at once. And in she went. Once more she found herself in the long hall and close to the little glass table. Now I'll manage better this time, she said to herself, and began by taking the little golden key and unlocking the door that led to the garden. Then she went to work nibbling at the mushroom. She had kept a piece of it in her pocket, so she was about a foot high. And she walked down the little passage, and then she found herself at last in the beautiful garden, among the bright flower beds and cool fountain. I need to stretch up some more. Hold on, I'm breaking it. I'm gonna reposition this. As it stands, it's pretty hard for me to... There we go. Da 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 da. Wish it was that easy for me. I can't fall asleep that easily. Not many people can. I've considered trying like different things, but there's like those like melatonin gummies and stuff, but I usually just stay asleep until stay awake until I pass out. Okay, hold on. I think a shower helps. I thought you're not supposed to shower before bed. Because a shower warms you up and your body naturally cools off before you go to bed. I said carrots in my eye comments, so stay awake. What? What does that mean? What does that mean? Everybody is different. My solution is usually a lot of alcohol. What? Jesus, chat, what is wrong with you today? Shower cools up in hot countries. Where I live, it's pretty cold, so I usually take hot showers. Pushing that, and there we go. Now if I... Yep. Okay. Nice and comfy, chat. Nice and comfy. You guys have solutions. Apparently not. Okay. What page is this? This is 64 out of 105. We might be able to finish this today. Not sure. Well, maybe not. I don't know. I don't feel like... I don't know. Am I reading too fast or am I reading too slow or... What's your guys' hold on. I adjust this. What's your guys' input? There we go. Am I speaking clearly enough? Just right pace. Okay. I'm legitimately gonna sleep to this, but it's 11 a.m. But Pippa says it's a bedtime story. Oh my gosh. Yes, Mom. Okay. Brian Lane, thank you for the 420. You have a delightful reading voice. Glad to catch you live for once. I hope you have a long and prosperous VTubing career. Oh. I hope so too. I hope so too. Adjust the pace by a pip and a half. I understand completely what you mean. Too fast for me, a non-native English speaker. I'll try to go a little bit more slowly. I'm reading so, I don't feel like I'm reading quickly, but then I start stumbling over my words, which must mean I am reading too quickly, you know? It's very difficult. The birds outside are very angry. Pippa is fairly easy to understand, to be honest. I'm glad. I feel like I don't speak very clearly. Words are a bit twisted. Like my words are a bit twisted? Rapapa! Rapapa! Alright. Let's go on to Chapter 8. The Queen's Croquet Ground. Oh wait, no, hold on. I always forget to go over the pictures. Okay. So here we are. Oh, why is it not working? There we go. We have the why can't I think of the word for that? We have a tea party. There's Alice. She's very peeved, and the March Hare, who's looking at her, giving her like kind of the side eye, very wary. And then we have, I think that's the Dormouse right there, beside the Hatter. I hope the bird's not too loud. I'm sorry. Does the hair always... Hares just naturally look like that, I'd say. Hares are a very interesting species of animal. They're not quite related. I mean, they're related to rabbits, but they're not quite the same. Rabbits and hares are different. Here we have the Hatter and the Dormouse right beside him, and the Hatter is very pompous. And then we have the Hatter and the March Hare shoving the Dormouse into the teapot. Which, speaking of which, this must be a rather large Dormouse, because even compared to a hare, he's about the same size. A Dormouse shouldn't be that big. I'm just saying the hare is asking me for a cigarette outside the gas station. Jesus. Alright. Chapter 8. The Queen's Croquet Ground. A large rose tree stood near the entrance of the garden. The roses growing on it were white, but there were God. Suddenly I get hiccups. But there were 3 gardeners at it, busily painting them red. Alice thought this a very curious thing, and she went nearer to watch them. And just as she came up to them, she heard one of them say, "Look out now, 5. Don't go splashing paint over me like that." "I couldn't help it," said 5 in a sulky tone. 7 jogged my elbow. On which 7 looked up and said, "That's right, 5. Always lay the blame on others." "You'd better not talk," said 5. "I heard the Queen say only yesterday you deserved to be beheaded." "What for?" said the one who had spoken first. "That's none of your business, too," said 7. "Yes, it is his business," said 5. "And I'll tell him it was for bringing the cook tulip roots instead of onions." It was for bringing the cook tulip roots instead of onions. 7 flung down his brush and had just begun. Well, of all the unjust things... When his first chance to fall upon Alice. As she stood watching them, and she checked herself suddenly, the others looked around also, and all of them bowed low. "Would you tell me, please," said Alice, a little timidly, "why you are painting those roses?" 5 and 7 said nothing, but looked at 2. 2 began in a low voice. "Why, the fact is, you see, miss, this here ought to have been a red rose tree, and we put a white one in by mistake, and if the Queen was to find it out, we should all have our heads cut off, you know. So you see, miss, we're doing our best, afore she comes to—" At this moment 5, who had been anxiously looking across the garden, called out, "The Queen! The Queen!" And the 3 gardeners instantly threw themselves flat upon their faces. There was a sound of many footsteps, and Alice looked round, eager to see the Queen. The bird likes the story too. Sorry about that. First came 10 soldiers carrying clubs. These were all shaped like the 3 gardeners, oblong and flat, with their hands and feet at the corners. Next to the 10 courtiers, these were ornamented all over with diamonds, and walked 2 and 2, as the soldiers did. After these came the royal children. There were 10 of them, and the little dears came jumping merrily along hand in hand in couples. They were all ornamented with hearts. Next came the guests, mostly kings and queens, and among them Alice recognized the White Rabbit. It was talking in a hurried, nervous manner, smiling at everything that was said, and went by without noticing her. Then followed the Knave of Hearts, carrying the king's crown on a crimson velvet cushion. And last of all this grand procession came the King and Queen of Hearts. Alice was rather doubtful whether she ought not to lie down on her face like the 3 gardeners, but she could not remember ever having heard of such a rule at processions. And oh, thank you for the dono! The bird! The bird said thank you for the story time, Pippa! You're welcome, bird! You're welcome! Oh my god. Anyways. Sorry. That caught me off guard. Alice was rather doubtful whether she ought not to lie down on her face like the 3 gardeners, but she could not remember ever having heard of such a rule at processions. And besides, what would be the use of a procession, she thought, if people had all to lie down on their faces so that they couldn't see it? So she stood where she was and waited. When the procession came opposite to Alice, they all stopped and looked at her, and the Queen said severely, "Who is this?" She said it to the Knave of Hearts, who only bowed and smiled in reply. "Idiot!" said the Queen, tossing her head impatiently, and turning to Alice, she went on, "What's your name, child?" "My name's Alice, so please, your Majesty," said Alice very politely, but she added to herself, "Why, they're only a pack of cards after all. I needn't be afraid of them." "And who are these?" said the Queen, pointing to the 3 gardeners who were lying round the rose tree. For you see, as they were lying on their faces, the pattern on their backs was the same as the rest of the pack. She could not tell whether they were gardeners or soldiers or courtiers, or 3 of her own children. "How should I know?" said Alice, surprised at her own courage. "It's no business of mine." The Queen turned crimson with fury, and after glaring at her for a moment like a wild beast, began screaming, "Off with her head! Off! Nonsense!" said Alice very loudly and decidedly, and the Queen was silent. The King laid his hand upon her arm and timidly said, "Consider, my dear, she is only a child." The Queen turned angrily away from him and said to the Knave, "Turn them over." The Knave did so, very carefully, with one foot. "Get up," the Queen said, said the Queen in a shrill, loud voice, and the 3 gardeners instantly jumped up and began bowing to the King, the Queen, and the royal children, and everybody else. "Leave off that!" screamed the Queen. "You take me giddy, or you make me giddy." And then, turning to the rose tree, she went on, "What have you been doing here?" "May it please your majesty," said two, in a very humble tone, going down on one knee as he spoke. "We were trying—" "I see," said the queen, who had been... Oh, can't read. I can't read, chat. "I see," said the queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses. "Off with their heads!" And the procession moved on, 3 of the soldiers remaining behind execute the unfortunate gardeners who ran to Alice for protection. "You shan't be beheaded," said Alice, and she put them into a large flower pot that stood near. The 3 soldiers wandered about for a minute or two looking for them, and then quietly marched off after the others. "Are their heads off?" shouted the queen. "Their heads are gone, if it pleases your majesty," the soldiers shouted in reply. "That's right!" shouted the queen. "Can you play croquet?" The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice, as the question was evidently meant for her. "Yes!" shouted Alice. "Come on then!" roared the queen, and Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what would happen next. It's a very fine day," said a timid voice at her side. She was walking by the white rabbit, who was peeping anxiously into her face. "Very," said Alice. "Where's the Duchess?" "Hush, hush," said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke, and then raised himself upon tiptoe, put his mouth close to her ear, and whispered, "She's under sentence of execution." "What for?" Alice said. "What did you say? What a pity?" the rabbit asked. "No, I didn't," said Alice. "I don't think it's at all a pity. I said, what for?" "She boxed the queen's ears," the rabbit began. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. "Oh, hush!" the rabbit whispered in a frightened tone. "The queen will hear you. You see, she came rather late, and the queen said—" "Get to your places!" shouted the queen in a voice of thunder, and people began running about in all directions, tumbling up against each other. However, they got settled down in a minute or two, and the game began. Alice thought she had never seen such a curious croquet ground in her life. It was all ridges and furrows. The croquet balls were live hedgehogs, the mallets live flamingos, and the soldiers had to double themselves up to stand on their hands and feet to make the arches. The chief difficulty Alice found at first was in managing her flamingo. She succeeded in getting its body tucked away comfortably enough under her arm, with its legs hanging down, but generally, just as she had got its neck nicely straightened out and was going to give the hedgehog a blow with its head, it would twist itself around and look up into her face with such a puzzled expression that she could not help bursting out laughing. And when she had got its head down and was going to begin again, it was very provoking to find that the hedgehog had unrolled itself and was in the act of crawling away. Besides all this, there was generally a ridge or furrow in the way wherever she wanted to send the hedgehog to. And, as the doubled-up soldiers were always getting up and walking off to other parts of the ground, Alice soon came to the conclusion that it was a very difficult game indeed. The players all played at... Dumb Alice can't manage her flamingo. What a noob. The players all played at once without waiting for their turns, quarreling all the while and fighting for the hedgehogs. And in a very short time the queen was in a furious passion, and went stamping about and shouting, "Off with his head!" or "Off with her head!" about once a minute. Should I go chase away that bird? Is the bird bothering anyone? Would you guys like me to chase it away? It's a very squeaky, noisy thing. That's not part of the story. I'm just asking you guys. No? You guys don't mind the squeaky? The bird is okay if you're okay. I'm fine with it. No, that's okay. Okay. Maybe it's a flamingo. Cook it! Alice began to feel very uneasy, to be sure, so she had not as yet had any dispute with the queen, but she knew that it might happen any minute. And then, thought she, what would become of me? They're dreadfully fond of beheading people here. The great wonder is that there's anyone left alive. No, okay. She was looking about for some way of escape and wondering whether she could get away without being seen, when she noticed a curious appearance in the air. It puzzled her very much at first, but after watching it a minute or two, she made it out to be a grin, and she said to herself, "It's the Cheshire Cat. Now I shall have somebody to talk to." "How are you getting on?" said the cat, as soon as there was mouth enough for it to speak with. Alice waited till the eyes appeared, and then nodded. It's no use speaking to it, she thought, till its ears have come, or at least one of them. In another minute the whole head appeared, and then Alice put down her flamingo and began an account of the game, feeling very glad she had someone to listen to her. The cat seemed to think that there was enough of it now in sight, and no more of it appeared. "I don't think they play it at all fairly," Alice began in a rather complaining tone. "And they all quarrel so dreadfully one can't hear oneself speak, and they don't seem to have any rules in particular. At least, if there are, nobody attends to them, and you've got no idea how confusing it is, all the things being alive. For instance, there's the arch I've got to go through next walking about at the other end of the ground, and I should have croqueted the Queen's hedgehog just now, only it ran away when it saw mine coming." "How do you like the Queen?" said the cat in a low voice. "Not at all," said Alice. "She's so extremely—" Just then she noticed that the Queen was close behind her, listening, so she went on, "likely to win, that it's hardly worthwhile finishing the game." The Queen smiled and passed on. "Who are you talking to?" said the King, coming up to Alice and looking at the cat's head with a great curiosity. "It's a friend of mine, a Cheshire Cat," said Alice. "Allow me to introduce it." "I don't like the look of it at all," said the King. "However, it may kiss my hand if it likes." "I'd rather not," the cat remarked. "Don't be impertinent," said the King, "and don't look at me like that." He got behind Alice as he spoke. "A cat may look at a king," said Alice. I've read that in some book, but I don't remember where." I got distracted by chat for a moment, sorry. "Well, it must be removed," said the King very decidedly, and he called the Queen, who was passing at the moment. "My dear, I wish you would have this cat removed." The Queen had only one way of settling all difficulties, great or small. "Off with his head," she said, without even looking round. "I'll fetch the executioner myself," said the King eagerly, and he hurried off. Alice thought she might as well go back and see how the game was going on, as she heard the Queen's voice in the distance, screaming with passion. She had already heard her sentence 3 of the players to be executed for having missed their turns, and she did not like the look of things at all, as the game was in such confusion that she never knew whether it was her turn or not, so she went off in search of her hedgehog. The hedgehog was engaged in a fight with another hedgehog, which seemed to Alice an excellent opportunity for croqueting one of them with the other. The only difficulty was that her flamingo was gone across the other side of the garden, where Alice could see it trying in a helpless sort of way to fly up into a tree. By the time she had caught the flamingo and brought it back, the fight was over, and both hedgehogs were out of sight. "But it doesn't matter," thought Alice, "as all the arches are gone from this side of the ground." So she tucked it away under her arm that it might not escape again, and went back to have a little more conversation with her friend. When she got back to the Cheshire Cat, she was surprised to find quite a large crowd collected around it. There was a dispute going on between the executioner, the King, and the Queen, who were all talking at once, while all the rest were quite silent and looked very uncomfortable. The moment Alice appeared, she was appealed to by all 3 to settle the question, and they repeated their arguments to her. So, as they all spoke at once, she found it very hard to make out exactly what they said. Executioner's argument was that you shouldn't cut off a head unless there was a body to cut it off from. That he had never had to do such a thing before, and he wasn't going to begin at his time of life. The King's argument was that anything that had a head could be beheaded, and that you weren't to talk nonsense. The The Queen's argument was that if something wasn't done about it in less than no time, she'd have everybody executed all around. It was this last remark that had made the whole party look so grave and anxious. Alice could think of nothing else to say, but it belongs to the Duchess. You'd better ask her about it. She's in prison, the Queen said to the executioner. Fetch her here, and the executioner went off like an arrow. The cat's head began fading away the moment he was gone, and by the time he had come back with the Duchess, it had entirely disappeared. So the king and the executioner ran wildly up and down looking for it, while the rest of the party went back to the game. Okay, so now we're on to chapter 9. We're gonna look at the pretty pictures. Here we have. These are the 3 cards, the gardeners, and they're painting the roses red. I'm pretty sure all of you know. That iconic line. I think your bird prisoners are hungry. Who says they're my prisoners? Maybe I'm like a Disney princess and birds just love me. Here we have a nice shot of the garden. You can see, I think that's meant to be like the castle in the background. And you have the different members of the procession. You have the Queen standing here. She is quite big-headed herself. I think the Duchess has a bigger head though. You can see the Duchess here, and you can see the Queen and the King here. And then I think this is the knave. And or is this one the knave over here? I'm not sure. But Alice is here, and she's quite small compared to all of them. Proportions are so different. Pippa, can you please stop feeding the pigeons outside the office? Thanks. No. No. Pippa must free the sky rats, alright? Sky rats have rights. Pigeons are cute. What is she feeding them? Sometimes I crunch up my bag of Doritos and I just throw a handful out. They're eating good tonight, please! And then here we have Alice, and she's holding her flamingo, and it's looking at her like, what the hell are you doing, woman? Because that's gotta be quite painful, you know, to have your head slammed up against a hedgehog. But, you have Alice, her foot is on one of the hedgehogs, and then the other one's escaping. Then here we have hedgehog. Can I join the birds? Yes, I will throw crumpled up Doritos at you. Would you like that? Do you want me to throw crumpled up Doritos at you? Here is the Cheshire Cat, and then we have the Queen and the King, and I think this is the executioner. And right here we have the White Rabbit. He's just peeking out from the corner. He's gotten a lot friendlier since the start, I'd say. He's not confusing her with Marianne anymore. But that takes us to chapter 9, the Mock Turtle Story. My tea is cold. When you do, we're gonna say thank you for the food, Mama. You're welcome. You want some food? Is the White Rabbit a relative? I wonder. Pippa's laugh almost sounds like a bird. So we call you Mama Pippa. I am Mama Pippa. Michiru is Papa. Tenma is... Tenma is my side hoe. Tenma's my side hoe? That's right, my husband is a cuck. So, yeah. And then Nos is my daughter. She's my daughter. Just mine. And what else? wife's boyfriend will kick your ass! We talked about this? Sorry. Oh, what is Leah? What is Leah? Leah is like the cashier at Walmart that tells you their life story, so that you're they're pretty much family, you know? I don't know. Leah's not that talkative, actually. Leah's not that talkative. Can you laugh like whole life Pecora? I can't do it! I can't do it! What is Leah? Leah is my husband's sister wife. I don't know. What is this? You know what? Let's do I had some other things planned for next week, but maybe we'll do a Face Connect family tree stream. There we go. Sister wife or sister's wife? Sister wife. I think sister wife. Father, sisters, cousins, uncles, former roommate. Your laughing kind of sounds like whole life Pecora. I don't think about that. I don't think that. Sweet home Alabama, where the skies are so blue. Pippa hosted a family tree stream is a hard no for management. Yeah, that's probably a hard no. Listen, I'm working hard, okay? Listen, I'm trying very hard to not bother management, okay? I don't want to be a nuisance. I don't want to be a nuisance. Listen. Every time I do something, okay, I apologize to management. I'm like, Sakana, I'm sorry. Just kidding, sucking these nuts. You thought I'd apologize. Just kidding. No, I really do apologize. I really do apologize, okay? Listen, I'm not a complete gremlin, alright? I have some manners. Anyways. We're almost done with this. Let's try and finish this. I have another reading stream scheduled for next week, but maybe we'll move on to one of the other stories. I don't know. Alright, how do you guys feel about watch-alongs? Finish the book today. Yeah, I'd like to. Sakana got punked. Reading stream, any percent. Let's go! More stories. What are we watching? Well, we'd watch Alice in Wonderland, of course. I can't show anything on stream, though. Sadly. I like them, but sometimes it's hard to find where to stream the thing we're watching. Tim Burton's or Disney? Well, they both belong to Disney. Well, Tim Burton's and the Disney one. But, there's other adaptations of Alice in Wonderland. But I don't know. We'll figure something out. Ram Ranch. 18. Okay, let's continue. Monty Python was... Oh, something. There might be public domain versions of Alice in Wonderland. Maybe. Okay, let's continue on. You can't think how glad I am to see you again, you dear old thing, said the Duchess as she tucked her arm affectionately into Alice's, and they walked off together. Alice was very glad to find her in such a pleasant temper, and thought to herself that perhaps it was only the pepper that had made her so savage when they met in the kitchen. When I'm a Duchess, she said to herself, not in a very hopeful tone though, I won't have any pepper in my kitchen at all. Soup does very well without. Maybe it's always pepper that makes people hot-tempered, she went on, very much pleased at having found out a new kind of rule. And vinegar that makes them sour, and chamomile that makes them bitter, and barley sugar, and such things that make children sweet-tempered. I only wish people knew that. Then they wouldn't be so stingy about it, you know. She had quite forgotten the Duchess by this time, and was a little startled when she heard her voice close to her ear. You are thinking about something, my dear, and that makes you forget to talk. I can't tell you just now what the moral of that is, but I shall remember it in a bit. Perhaps it hasn't one, Alice ventured to remark. Tut, tut, child, said the Duchess. Everything's got a moral, if only you can find it. And she squeezed herself up closer to Alice's side as she spoke. Alice did not much like keeping so close to her. First, because the Duchess was very ugly. And secondly, because she was exactly the right height to rest her chin upon Alice's shoulder, and it was an uncomfortably sharp chin. She did not like to be rude, so she bore it as well as she could. The game's going on rather better now, she said, by way of keeping up the conversation a little. "'Tis so," said the Duchess, "and the moral of that is, oh, 'tis love that makes the world go round." "Somebody said," Alice whispered, "that it's done by everybody minding their own business." "Ah, well, it means much the same thing," said the Duchess, digging her sharp little chin into Alice's shoulder, as she added, "and the moral of that is, take care of the sense, and the sounds will take care of themselves." How fond she is of finding morals in things, Alice thought to herself. "I dare say you're wondering why I don't put my arm around your waist," said the Duchess after a pause. "The reason is that I'm doubtful about the temper of your flamingo. Shall I try the experiment?" "You might bite," Alice cautiously replied, not feeling at all anxious to have the experiment tried. "Very true," said the Duchess. "Flamingos and mustard both bite, and the moral of that is, birds of a feather flock together." "Only mustard isn't a bird," Alice remarked. "Right as usual," said the Duchess. "What a queer way you have of putting things." "It's a mineral, I think," said Alice. "Of course it is," said the Duchess, who seemed ready to agree to everything that Alice said. "There's a large mustard mine near here, and the moral of that is, the more there is of mine, the less there is of yours." "Oh, I know!" exclaimed Alice, who had not attended to this last remark. "It's a vegetable. It doesn't look like one, but it is." "I quite agree with you," said the Duchess, "and the moral of that is, be what you would seem to be, or, if you'd like to put it a bit more simply, never imagine yourself not to be otherwise than what it might appear to others that what you were or might have been was not otherwise than what you had been, would you have appeared to them to be otherwise." "I think I should understand that better," Alice said very politely, "if I had it written down, but I can't quite follow it as you say it." I almost did that perfectly. "There's nothing to what I could say if I could choose. That's nothing to what I could say if I chose," the Duchess replied in a pleased tone. "Pray don't trouble yourself to say it any longer than that," said Alice. "Oh, don't talk about trouble," said the Duchess. "I make you a present of everything I've said as yet." "A cheap sort of present," thought Alice. "I'm glad they don't give birthday presents like that." But she did not venture to say it out loud. "Thinking again?" the Duchess asked, with another dig of her sharp little chin. "I've a right to think," said Alice sharply, for she was beginning to feel a little worried. "Just about as much right," said the Duchess, "as pigs have to fly and the—" But here, to Alice's great surprise, the Duchess's voice died away, even in the middle of her favorite word, moral, and the arm that was linked to hers began to tremble. Alice looked up, and there stood the Queen in front of them, with her arms folded, frowning like a thunderstorm. "A fine day, Your Majesty," the Duchess began in a low, meek voice. Now I give you fair warning, shouted the Queen, stamping on the ground as she spoke. Either you or your head must be off, and about in half no time, take your choice. The Duchess took her choice, and was gone in a moment. Let's go on with the game, the Queen said to Alice, and Alice was too frightened to say a word, but slowly followed her back to the croquet ground. How many chapters is this? 12. The other guests had taken advantage of the Queen's absence and were resting in the shade. However, the moment they saw her, they hurried back to the game, the Queen merely remarking that a moment's delay would cost them their lives. All the time they were playing, the Queen never left off quarreling with the other players and shouting, "Off with his head!" or "Off with her head!" Those whom she sentenced were taken into custody by the soldiers, who of course had to leave off being archers to do so that by the end of half an hour or so there were no archers left, and all the players, except the King, the Queen, and Alice, were in custody and under sentence of execution. Then the Queen left off, quite out of breath, and said to Alice, "Have you seen the mock turtle yet?" "No," said Alice. "I don't even know what a mock turtle is." "It's the thing the mock turtle soup is made from," said the Queen. "I never saw one, or heard of one," said Alice. "Come on then," said the Queen, "and he shall tell you his story. Or he shall tell you his history." As they walked off together, Alice heard the King say in a low voice, the company generally, "You are all pardoned." "Come, that's a good thing," she said to herself, or she had felt quite unhappy at the number of executions. For she had felt quite unhappy at the number of executions the Queen had ordered. They very soon came upon a griffin, lying fast asleep in the sun. If you don't know what a griffin is, look at the picture. "Up, lazy thing," said the Queen, "and take this young lady to see the mock turtle and to hear his history. I must go back and see after some executions I have ordered." And she walked off, leaving Alice alone with the griffin. Alice did not quite like the look of the creature, but on the whole she thought it would be quite as safe to stay with it as to go after that savage Queen, so she waited. The griffin sat up and rubbed his eyes, then it watched the Queen till she was out of sight. Then it chuckled. "What fun!" said the griffin, half to itself, half to Alice. "What is the fun?" said Alice. "Why, she," said the griffin. "It's all her fancy, that. They never executes nobody, you know. Come on." "Everybody says come on here," thought Alice, as she went slowly after it. "I never was so ordered about before in all my life. Never." They had not gone far before they saw the mock turtle in the distance, sitting sad and lonely on a little ledge of rock, and, as they came nearer, Alice could hear him sighing as if his heart would break. She pitied him deeply. "What is his sorrow?" she asked the griffin. And the griffin answered, very nearly in the same words as before, "It's all his fancy, that. He hasn't got no sorrow, you know. Come on." So they went up to the mock turtle, who looked at them with large eyes full of tears, but said nothing. "This here young lady," said the griffin, "she wants for to know your history, she do." "I'll tell it to her," said the mock turtle in a deep, hollow tone. "Sit down, both of you, and don't speak a word till I've finished." So they sat down, and nobody spoke for some minutes. Alice thought to herself, "I don't see how he can ever finish if he doesn't begin," but she waited patiently. "Once," said the mock turtle at last, with a deep sigh, "I was a real turtle." These words were followed by a very long silence, broken only by an occasional explanation of "Rrrt" from the griffin and the constant heaving, heavy sobbing of the mock turtle. Alice was very nearly getting up and saying, "Thank you, sir, for your interesting story," but she could not help thinking there must be more to come, so she sat still and said nothing. "When we were little," the mock turtle went on at last, more calmly, though still sobbing a little now and then. We went to school in the sea. The master was an old turtle. We used to call him Tortoise. Why did you call him Tortoise if he wasn't one? Alice asked. We called him Tortoise because he taught us, said the Mock Turtle angrily. Really, you are very dull. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for asking such a simple question, added the Griffin. And then they both sat silent and looked at poor Alice, who felt ready to sink into the earth. At last the Griffin said to the Mock Turtle, Drive on, old fellow. Don't be all day about it. And he went on in these words. Yes, we went to school in the sea, though you mayn't believe it. I never said I didn't, interrupted Alice. You did, said the Mock Turtle. Hold your tongue, added the Griffin, before Alice could speak again. The Mock Turtle went on. We had the best of educations. In fact, we went to school every day. I've been to a day school too, said Alice. You needn't be so proud as all that. With extras? Asked the Mock Turtle a little anxiously. Yes, said Alice. We learned French and music. And washing? Said the Mock Turtle. Certainly not, said Alice indignantly. Huh? Then yours wasn't a really good school, said the Mock Turtle in a tone of great relief. Now at ours, they had at the end of the bill French, music, and washing extra. You couldn't have wanted it much, said Alice, living at the bottom of the sea. I couldn't afford to learn it, said the Mock Turtle with a sigh. I only took the regular course. What was that? Inquired Alice. Reading and writing, of course. To begin with, the Mock Turtle replied, and then the different branches of arithmetic. Ambition, abstraction, uglification, and derision. I never heard of uglification, Alice ventured to say. What is it? The Griffin lifted up both of its paws in surprise. Never heard of uglifying, it exclaimed. You know what beautify is, I suppose? Yes, said Alice doubtfully. It means to make anything prettier. Well then, the Griffin went on, if you don't know what to uglify is, you are a simpleton. Alice did not feel encouraged to ask any more questions about it, so she turned to the Mock Turtle and said, What else had you to learn? Well, there was mystery, the Mock Turtle replied, counting off the subjects on his flappers. Mystery, ancient and modern, 𝑶𝑯𝑨𝒀𝑃, then drawling. The drawling master was an old 𝐂𝐚𝐭 that used to come once a week. He taught us drawing, sketching, and fainting in foils. What was that like? Said Alice. Well, I can't show it to you myself, the Mock Turtle said. I'm too stiff, and the Griffin never learnt it. Hadn't time, said the Griffin. I went to the classical master, though. He was an old crab, he was. I never went to him, the Mock Turtle said with a sigh. He taught laughing and grief, they used to say. So he did, said the Griffin, sighing in his turn, and both creatures hid their faces in their paws. And how many hours a day did you do lessons? Said Alice, in a hurry to change the subject. 10 hours the first day, said the Mock Turtle. 9 the next, and so on. What a curious plan, exclaimed Alice. That's the reason they're called lessons, the Griffin remarked, because they lesson from day to day. This was quite a new idea to Alice, and she thought it over a little before she made her next remark. Then on the 11th day must have been a holiday? Of course it was, said the Mock Turtle. And how did you manage on the 12th? Alice went on eagerly. That's enough about lessons, the Griffin interrupted in a very decided tone. Tell her something about the games now. Da, 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 da. What the hell are you guys talking about? What the hell are you guys talking about? That is hurting my heart. What? I'd hardly call this old English, just posh British. Hey, chat, what's the difference between English and British? Pippa could read a horror novel and make it very pleasing. Oh, Pippa's favorite thing growing up was horror novels. Stephen King, especially. Anything he wrote. Chapter 10, yes. We're on to Chapter 10. The Lobster Quadrille. Words used. They're the same thing, really. H. Pippa Lovecraft. We'd have to... I've never read I've never read any Lovecrafts, but... I've watched, there's a booktuber that I like, called Dominic Noble. And the thing, he has a series called, shoot, what is it called? Adaptation versus original or something like that? I don't know. But, Pippa named her cat. No, Pippa did not! Pippa doesn't have a cat, first of all. But the things he said. Lovecraft had a very, he had some interesting opinions, we'll leave it at that. His work, reflected his interesting opinions sometimes. I don't know. I'll look them over. Maybe if there was not, maybe if it's only like a little bit or something, I can just skim over it, and I don't have to say anything. And we can give like just a recap. But I've heard some of his books have questionable content in them. So yeah. We'll have to Pippa will have to do some research. But it'd be interesting. I've never read any Lovecraft. It's always interested me. But I don't know, I just never got around to it. There are so many classics, you know? There's so many classics that it's always hard to find time to both indulge in the classics, but also keep up with like what's popular and just what you're interested in. Like especially when I was younger. I tried to read like a bunch of the classics. Of course our classics are different from your classics, but there's so many. There's so many. Alright. We're on to chapter 10. It doesn't... We're on 81 out of 105. I think we can finish this tonight. They're good reading, but his prose is quite annoying. I don't know, what are the things about books? I know a lot of people consider it to be like good writing, but I don't enjoy overly descriptive dialogue. I feel like if you can, full of like 6-syllable adjectives. Like I feel like if you can say something in 10 words, why would you bother saying it in 50? As long as the point's clear. And I don't really have a problem with stuff being left up to the imagination either. Brevity is the soul of wit. That's why, like, when people talked about Twilight, I went on and I read Twilight. Why waste time? Why waste time? Say a lot of word when a few word do trick. I actually went back and I read Twilight, and I didn't think the writing was that bad, honestly. I think the story is cliche at best, and kind of weird at worst, but honestly, I don't understand like what the whole Stephanie Meyer, such a mock author. It's like I don't really. Hi Pippa, I get what you say. I also don't like stories that keeps describing the background for pages. Same. Oh god. especially in a lot of classic books, a lot of classic literature. If it's at all involved in like a Victorian setting, for some reason they want to drone on for several pages about random shit. Okay, to put it eloquently, random shit. That'll only be there for like one brief scene, and it's like you spent more pages. You spent more. You wrote more words describing the way a ballroom looks, for it to only be there for 10 pages. Those 10 pages, 90% of that was you describing the scenery, and 10% of that was actual content. And I can understand if that's like the appeal of some things, like Red Mars. A lot of people like the terraforming language and stuff in that books. Or in those books. But honestly, it drives me insane. It's like interesting language is one thing. Interesting language is one thing, but it's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing to sit there and go on for pages. War and Peace. I haven't read War and Peace. One example of this, to some extent. Oh, so is horror your favorite genre of books? I wouldn't say no. No. I'm more into psychological exploration. I wanna say psychological genre, but that's not quite it. My favorite stories are those that delve into the minds of bad people. Does that make sense? Like Lolita and Crime and Punishment. Just those kinds of books, you know? I like books that are from the point of view of a bad person. Russian realist Pippa. Lolita read along. No. No, not gonna happen. Management will really have my head. You might like Dune then. I've never read Dune. Don't get it confused, okay? Don't get it confused. A lot of people misunderstand Lolita. 1984. That's not from the POV of a bad person, but that is a book I really love. Maybe, well, not public domain. I'm not sure. Fun fact: I loved 1984 so much. For a while, I was naming all of my pets after it. Brave New World. Brave New World, I tried reading it. It doesn't particularly catch my interest. It just felt a little bit I don't know. Creepy, no. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Brave New World. It felt more. It was more sci-fi. It was more sci-fi. Whereas 1984 has, like, I guess, futuristic elements, but 1984 is under copyright until 2044. Ah, damn it. Back in my early days reading, I began reading crime detective stuff, then moved on to Lovecraftian horror, then sword and sorcery fantasy. Oh, I was never terribly into sword and sorcery kind of books. Like, I would read them a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know. They just never really caught my attention. Schedule a stream for January 1st, 2044. You know what? I'll do it. Journey to the West. I never read that. I don't think. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say, okay, Lolita. A lot of people get Lolita confused. Okay, Lolita's not a romance book, alright? Like, don't get it wrong, alright? I feel like people that throw it around as a dirty word. I mean, I guess it has dirty connotations now. But Lolita is about the main character being a complete scumbag. He's not at all painted in a good light. In a good light. Like everybody hates him, you know? He's not a good person. I think his name was Herbert. I haven't read it in quite some time, but I don't know. A lot of people misconstrue the point of the book. But very hateful. People idolize Hannibal for some reason too. I haven't read that. I've seen Silence of the Lambs. But it's very strange, isn't it? It's very strange. I feel like people just I guess it's all about optics, you know? Like people pick what they like from something. You know what they like. People pick what they dislike and they run with this narrative. Lord of the Flies. Humbert, yes. Humbert. His name was so stupid, I can never remember it. Sherlock Holmes. Some of the Sherlock Holmes books are in public domain, but not all of them. But honestly, you want to talk... That's another thing, alright? That's another thing, alright? If you actually read Sherlock Holmes, they're very silly. They're very silly. Sherlock Holmes books are very much, Oh, NASA is going live. Do you want to continue? Oh, I guess we should end it off here then. I was gonna continue. I wanted to finish this off today, but I don't want to stream over NASA. Sherlock Holmes books. They're like 007, you know? They're very silly. The James Bond's books. They're very silly, alright? They're not meant to be this pinnacle of great mystery, you know? Like, they're very silly at points. I understand the appeal of making Sherlock, like, a very serious, like, character. But I don't know. At least when I read them, which I haven't read all of them, I've only read a little bit. But, I found them to be pretty whimsical. I feel like that's a good word for it. Whimsical. James Bond's books are also very of their time. They're very strange. I've never actually completed one. I couldn't bring myself to sit through them entirely. I've never read To Kill a Mockingbird. Somehow that escaped me. Maybe we could do Brothers Grimm's read-alongs later. Oh, maybe. Some of them might be a little too inappropriate. We'll see. I'll ask management. Yeah, it feels weird. I didn't think anybody would want to, like, sit here and listen to me, talk about books. There's 007 book. Yeah, the 007 franchise is based on books. Oh, thank you for the $5. I will read in a second. Yeah, a lot of things are based on books. A lot of people don't realize that. Thank you, Brian Lane. You've got a delightful reading voice. Glad to keep... Oh wait, I already read that. The Bird, thank you for the 420. Thanks for the story time, Pippa. You're welcome. Unknown Vagabond, thank you for the $5. Great reading stream. I wasn't sleeping early. If I wasn't sleeping early, you could have knocked me from your soothing voice. You made everyone fall asleep. I'm glad. You could always read a 1920 Smith & Wesson catalog. Oh my god. Does such a thing exist? Does such a thing exist? I don't know. There are a lot of books I want to read now. If you guys are okay with this. I wasn't sure if I'd be boring people, but I really love reading. I haven't had a lot of time for it lately. Our Sears catalog's still under copyright! Oh my god. I love reading. It's hard. It's hard sitting down. And dedicating time to reading. Especially because I'm one of those people where I end up looking at my phone. 44Gem44, thank you for the 690. Thanks for stream. Your reading voice is so calming. Time for me to doze off. Glad. Books are awesome. I think so. Could always read the fitness gram pacer test. No! A lot of books are under copyright. Maybe we could work something out. I'm not sure. But there are plenty of books that aren't under copyright. I think that, I mean, Lovecraft. Lovecraft isn't under copyright. Hold on. I think Crime and Punishment is criminally underrated. So if I could read that out, I'd love to. Is Crime and Punishment public domain? How do I find out? I'll have to... Let's read Call of Cthulhu. Can do. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, Crime and Punishment is listed online, so I think it's in the public domain. But you want to talk about rambling. You want to talk about rambling and Crime and Punishment. Sonnet you read along. No. Management would bunk me. Crime and Punishment isn't underrated, Pippa. Yes, it is. Crime and Punishment is one of my favorites. But yeah, it's public domain. Listen, okay, why Pippa says Crime and Punishment is underrated is because this book was literally never once recommended to Pippa. Alright? You know how I found out about this book? Pippa was talking to one of her friends, and her friend recommended In Cold Blood. I think by like Truman Capote or something like that. And I was looking at it, and this book was in like the recommendeds. And that's how I found out about it. Nobody told me about this. Capote is a hack. What? I never actually read any Truman Capote. Why do you say he's a hack? Is that even how you pronounce his name? I heard somebody say Truman Capote once, but I don't know. Sometimes you can look into an audience license. People get them for public reads so long as the media isn't recorded. Also, Audible's free library is a good place to look for public domain stories. Capote. It is Capote. Oh, okay. Oh, because my mom says... Yeah, I had no idea. But anyways. Oh my god, we're rambling on. When does NASA start? Is she starting right now? Am I already overlapping? Look at the schedule. I'm already overlapping. Okay, we're gonna stream here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Now I feel guilty. Okay. 80 viewers. I guess people don't want to. People actually don't like listening to me ramble about books. Oh my god, the Metamorphosis is fantastic, but it's not finished. But we could read it anyways. Okay. Thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you. I do. Well, I'm glad. They fell asleep. Maybe. What's better? What's cringe? What's cringe? Alright, we'll finish this off next week. And then maybe we'll start on we'll probably read some more Lewis Carroll poems. And then the week after that, I think we'll start on Crime and Punishment. Okay. Good night, everyone. Good night if you're falling asleep. And if you're not falling asleep, then I hope you go to NASA's stream. Can somebody link that? Can somebody link NASA's stream? I'll set it as the pinned message. I'll try anyways. Hold on. Okay. Double audio. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night. And go check out NASA's stream. What's the swag? What's Pippa? Oh, good night. Gotta sleep before I cry. Don't cry. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, there we go. Okay, NASA's stream is pinned. Good night, everyone. Good night.